Welcome to Decoding the Future, a podcast where we explore the latest trends, challenges, and innovation in the world of technologies. I'm your host, Ke Yang, and today we have two special guests, Stanley from Cybersecurity Agency of Singapore and Dr. Chris from IDC. Maybe do a quick introduction of yourself, Chris and Stanley.
Delighted to, Ke Yang. So my name is Chris Marshall. I lead IDC's research in AI and industries across Asia-Pac. And my background, I've spent most of my career mainly in financial services, often on the risk and security side. So it's only the last 10 years, 15 years, I've really been pushing on the AI side. And it's a delight to marry the two stories together in this conversation today.
Afternoon, Stanley from Cybersecurity Agency. I'm the discrete engineer and senior director from CSA. I'm look after the emerging technology adoption, including AI, 5G, as well as architecture for cybersecurity agency. Okay, so get to be here to actually share my thought. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think to both of you, maybe you all has been aware that AI has been the hottest topic in the market for very long. And I think many of our customers is looking at how they can realize AI today in the enterprise space. So with that, maybe Chris, would you like to share with us what you think are some of the security gaps as they scale AI towards production use cases? What is forthcoming in that?
Good question. I think one thing that we have seen is that, the last 3-4 years since ChatGPT really kicked off has been a real headlong rush to innovate at all costs. Everybody's just tried to get as many interesting use cases. The board's been pressuring IT to get these things out there, usually functional use cases, but in some cases more complicated industry use cases too. But what we see is that a lot of companies have used open source technologies for the most part to drive those things. And that's made a lot of sense. It's relatively cheap in terms of initial investments, and they've been able to deploy those with some success, it has to be said. But now we're starting to notice that as open source gets deployed, particularly in production, some of the limitations of open source are starting to become apparent. And I think that is more than anything else perhaps driving the need for a more disciplined way of thinking about how AI can be deployed at scale. So, for example, we are seeing that some of the open source platforms do have issues. And it's certainly possible in many cases to use a relatively small number of malicious files to really corrupt the outputs that you get from Gen AI systems. So I think that's probably the biggest single thing. But I think it's also worth pointing out that there's other issues that have really come to light. And we've struggled to sort of tell a story that leverages the innovation, the need to bring to market quickly, and at the same time, building in security from the ground up, initially built into the underlying structure of how we deliver these systems at scale.
Yeah, 100% agree with Chris. I think that's exactly what we actually observe. How Singapore adopt AI. Everyone has been chasing the silver bullet, and then they actually want to adopt AI as much as possible. Sometimes they actually think security is afterthought. They spend so much effort just look at AI to deliver value. A lot of time we don't see they actually put in any security thought. Because of that, CSA actually create a security guideline and command guide back to 2024. We see it's an important set of frame to define entire AI system life cycle, what they need to watch out, how they can actually beef up their security control. We want to emphasize they should consider when we actually ever adopt a AI system, need to be security by design, security by default. And then they actually need to put in a proper control. Cannot be when they go live and then think about how to actually adopt security. So that is actually the key thing we do. And then the AI, Chris said, it evolved so fast. So we released a document about 1 year ago. This year, last week we announced we got to do an addendum for the Agentic framework. We see people using Agentic is even worse much because we are not doing one attack surface. when we talk about a different agent work together, possibly from different company, and then the attack surface had be expand. So we quickly actually come up with a guideline, and then the important is actually not just we do close the door by ourselves. Important, we actually involve the industry. We do a lot of public consultation, and then ask all the industry to actually chip in, and hopefully we can come up with a framework, secure and mature enough to actually help people adopt or implement AI security system.
That's very interesting. I think, Stanley, you definitely, from the regulator point of view, you will definitely agree that security cannot be an afterthought. So we definitely can see that CSA is coming in strongly to support the whole industry to move to adopt this AI solution with security built in from day one. So Stanley, if I may ask, what are the typical solutions that typically you see people in the industry is starting to focus on?
Very good questions. I think depends on the industry. So we see a lot of solution in Singapore, particularly focusing on LLM. But in contrast to some other country, like China, they actually go more on the industry use case. It will be in combination of the traditional ML AI. So in Singapore, we do see people using AI try to solving some of the business problem. I do see even in some of the government sector, for example, the healthcare, they actually want to using the AI system to help to improve the workflow, and then even to actually see whether they can improve some of the medical use case. If you ask me for CSA or cybersecurity, we look at AI into at least three key lens. For us to run cybersecurity operation, I would like AI can help us to do more. Can we using AI to do red teaming, malware analysis? Those certainly is an area we want to explore and see whether we can harvest the power of AI. And then as a regulator, we also worry about how to help the company, government to adopt AI security. So that's the lens of security for AI. Lastly, we also worry about if the defender like us using AI to defend ourselves. I'm pretty sure the bad guys will also want to using AI to do attack. So we also worry about the AI-enabled threat. I think it's actually proven for the last 1-2 years. We are seeing more and more AI-enabled deepfakes, phishing, and so on and so forth. So I think moving forward, this will be will scale up. We need to get ready to actually tackle this kind of AI-enabled threat.
I'm curious. I have a question really for Ke-Yang, and it's on the back of what Stanley said there. It's all very well, all of us talking about what we should be doing, right? There's many things we should all be doing. But how practically are people doing? I mean, are they actually succeeding in baking in security from day zero in their AI design activities? I don't know.
Oh, Chris, that's an interesting question. I think today, most people that we see when we work with our customer in the technology field, everybody is adopting generative AI. Everybody is working with LLM. And the interesting thing is everybody is putting huge amount of data to let all these chatbot agents actually have access to such kind of technology. We are seeing that security is lagging in the sense that, for example, we look at how Gen AI have access to certain amount of data, but Gen AI is also susceptible to attacks. And this kind of attacks actually can come in through a direct or indirect form. Of course, the direct form is looking at how they can hack through your application all the way to accessing your data store database. Of course, the indirect way is actually attacking your LLM and making sure that impersonation happens and how you can retrieve or draw out data from your LLM indirectly. For example, one of the key use cases that we typically mention in this aspect is, example, your HR software, you have a chatbot. And that HR software actually have access to all your company's employees' salary. Imagine someone impersonating and asking the chatbot, could you tell me what's your CEO's salary? Of course, this could be blocked off, but in certain way, the person can also impersonate and do a kind of reverse engineering onto expense claim that the CEO have, and actually gradually work out what the CEO's salary could be. So these are some of the ways that security is being attacked in the realm of AI and LLMs technology deployment.
I agree with what Kayang just shared. I think people need to actually get aware more about the LLM security. So we need to actually do risk assessment to understanding what's the risk factor. You have multiple dimensions. I think to me, AI is really a data problem. So your ground truth is actually your data. So how we actually can make sure you safeguard your training data or your output data, how you actually make sure your model is safe. So you need to actually constantly look at what will be the possible gap. Because to construct a AI solution, there's many form and shape. You can actually call a open API with Copilot, Gemini, and so on and so forth. And then you can also build an open source model. It all represent a different level of security concern. So we need to understanding what is actually the boundary you try to protect. Spending more focusing on protect those. And then you need to do a regular monitoring. Means you put in a guardrail, you need to actually validate how good is the guardrail. I agree with you, guardrail put in, it doesn't mean it's actually it will solve all the problem, because what we do, we actually spend a lot of time try to break the guardrail ourselves. And then you'll be surprised, even some of the big enterprise, I don't want to name, but it's surprisingly not that difficult to bypass those guardrails. And then eventually you leak the problem like leak the company data, or people actually do data poisoning and things like that. So knowing what risk involved, and then put in safeguard, doing a continuous vulnerability assessment, monitoring, I think it will be the key to adopt the AI system.
I think data is just one important aspect, but as more and more LLM, Gen AI actually get hooked onto workflows where they're actually able to execute certain actions, this is where it gets tricky and it gets really dangerous if security aspect is not taken care of.
Yeah. Based on your market research, how ready is the industry or enterprise? Are they ready for the security for AI adoption?
I mean, one of the things we see in the marketplace, quite frankly, is just a wide variation. I mean, it sort of goes all the way from what I'd call opportunistic AI development, even shadow AI to some extent, where every team says, let's use one of these Gen AI large language models to do something interesting, and there's no control at all.
Yes.
And slowly, companies morph, often larger companies tend to do it quicker than smaller ones. Slowly they morph towards a more centralized, like a COE kind of model of AI development and AI operations management, if you want to call it that. And then what I find interesting is each of these approaches has got its own problems, right? If you're very close to the data, you're very quick to innovate, all good. If you centralize everything, it takes a bit longer, a bit more complicated. On the other hand, you have standards and good practices. Another problem, which I think is really interesting, is that very often the COE does not have a risk focus. Their job is the development and the innovation. So they've got a mandate, usually from a CEO, to actually drive AI within the business. And I think one issue we see increasingly is as AI goes into production, as agentic AI becomes more important, because as you noted, you're integrating with lots of internal systems with agentic AI in a way that you weren't with Gen AI quite so much. It was more point to point. But when it gets to agentic and we start to have real consequences of AI use, rather than just I get a silly answer in my query, what happens, I think, is that companies start to think about a larger role for the traditional risk teams or security teams. Sure. The CISO gets involved and says, hey, I've got to worry about these AI engines that are being used in their various forms. And you have separation of duties between the COE, which his job is really to develop, maintain, manage the AI models, use cases across the enterprise, and the larger risk story. I mean, in financial services, we've long had a history of doing things like separation of duties. We say the guy who takes the risks is not the person who checks the risk. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something we're just moving towards in the larger companies. We're not there for the most part. But with Agentic AI, we start to have to worry about these things. And we have to start thinking about, how do we build, and maybe it's in the traditional risk management team, maybe it's in the security team, it's not clear, maybe it's IT risk or operations risk. Mm-hmm. But again, that direction seems inexorable, and that's what we're seeing just hinted at those areas, those companies that are really doubling down on AI to actually drive business development within their organization, rather than just do it as helping their HR team or doing narrow functional areas or whatever it is.
I think, Chris, you already point out. I think I agree. In the board conversation, people focusing on, I want AI to deliver value. But we seldom actually say, are we actually have mature enough the risk management model? I would like the people actually spend more time to actually figure out how they manage AI risk. I fully agree. When agentic come, it's not just an internal issue. It could be we are building agentic with external company. You buy service maybe. So all of a sudden the entire framework becomes so complicated. You got your internal risk, external risk, and so on and so forth. So so it's a tricky issue. So we want a company to think more about security risk. If you want to extend the agentic use case, in certain industry, the safety also will be coming in picture as well. With healthcare, if we want to actually using AI to replace some of the function of doctor, how sure we can actually say the AI system can be trusted, will not hallucinate it, and then give the wrong advice and so on and so forth. And then if we move AI to the AI physical, let's say upcoming the autonomous vehicle, can we fully trust the driving to the car? What happens if the car got accident? Who should bear the responsibility? I think particular reason, CSA, we actually set up AI security center of excellence in Singapore. We think this is actually a very big problem, and then we need to focus to bring in more people involved from the academia industry to involve to actually say, how can we make the AI more secure? When we extend the use case to the AI physical, we are ready. So that's some of the things on top of our minds. In order, other than just LLM, that's in the longer run, we need to really have a mature framework policy to guide us to do these kind of adoptions. Yeah.
Thank you, Stanley. Maybe just a very controversial question to ask both of you. I find it very interesting. Today we have many roles and responsibility. We have the CTO. In some organization there's a CDO, Chief Digital Officer. We also have Chief AI Officer these days. Yeah. So pertaining to the accountability, do you think it lies with CTO, CDO, Chief AI Officer, CAIO, or with CISO in terms of securing AI solution?
Yeah, let me get my take first. So I think you're right, because AI is actually moving so fast. I think based on what you described, I see all the form and shape in different company. To me, who actually doing it is not very clear or well defined. To me, more important, we need to recognize AI one hand is as a vehicle to help us drive innovation, bring value. On the other hand, we are also concerned about security, safety, and other elements. So I think as long as it's well defined within organization, who will take the responsibility. So my advice for companies, they need to set up some kind of AI governance framework, well defined who actually doing what. Whether it's part under the CTO, CIO, that's secondary. As long as we have a well-defined framework within the company, I think it's actually better off. And when question asked, it could be everyone's problem or no one's problem. You lose the accountability. That's the concern I have.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think accountability is the key thing. And one thing I'm a bit wary of, and I see this in a lot of companies, they talk about a chief AI officer or something like that, or some title like that. And I think that's a mistake, quite honestly, because ultimately accountability stops with the CEO and the business. I mean, if you've just hired somebody in order to be the fall guy if things go pear-shaped, you've clearly missed the point entirely, it seems to me. Yeah. And I think more and more we see, especially with agentic AI, you'll see AI blur into virtually every aspect of every business in every form. And suddenly it just doesn't make any sense to talk about, somebody whose job it is to be responsible for AI. Because, I mean, I'm always reminded, I mentioned this in the recent event we did, about the idea of a chief telephony officer. In America in 1900, all the big railway companies would have chief telephony officers because they thought, well, telephony is a big thing. It's going to change everything we do. It did change everything we did. But the problem was it was ubiquitous and it was just a hygiene factor. It became something part of everybody's job. So therefore, it didn't demand one person to be responsible for telephony. The same is going to be true, I think, of AI. It's going to be much more the case that if we do stupid business decisions, AI is going to speed that process up. But still, it's the CEO who is ultimately on the hook for this. Yeah. And anything else is kind of an abdication of that responsibility.
Yeah.
I think frameworks have got exactly the way to support that argument.
Yeah. Chris actually point out it resonated with me, because a few years back, when we talk about security, it's a CISO problem. We know it will not work until it elevates to be a bot conversation, become the CEO mandate. I can see the equivalent for AI as well. If you're using this to solve your business problem, it need to be holding the CEO accountable, because this one can generate a huge impact. You generate a lot of value, but at the same time, it can create a lot of risk as well. So the governance need to be a top conversation within the board. I think a CEO should be the right person to own the responsibility.
Thank you. I think CEO is definitely the ultimate accountable person. But from what I hear from both of you, security is everybody's problem.
Yes.
So everybody needs to own a piece of it to drive this, to make this successful.
Absolutely.
So Chris, what's your view, how the regulator play a role in the AI adoptions?
I'm always wary of answering a question from a regulator. But there's almost two types of regulations that we see everybody worrying about right now. One are more traditional kind of regulations, that are usually quite clear, very, very strict: data privacy, data security, data sovereignty in some cases where data is. And then there's and these are usually a set of rules that if you get it wrong, you're in trouble. You've got real skin in the game here. Then there's the AI, I won't call them regulations, they're more frameworks, policies, good advice. And I think they're both useful. But to be honest, I don't see that the market has quite taken on board the framework and the good practices kind of aspect of regulations for AI. Things like explainability, transparency, all these good things. And they are good things to do, make no mistake. But there's many different competing kind of frameworks across the world. And I think we struggle a little bit as corporate, executives to figure out, well, do I take the Singapore version, or do I take the ISO version? Do I take the European AI Act? There's many different spins on this. So as a result of that uncertainty, and especially with geopolitics that makes it all more complicated still, what people have tended to do is say, I'm just going to focus on the big things: data privacy, data security, data sovereignty. In fact, I would argue the data sovereignty is the hot topic in the marketplace right now because of, partly because China's spearheading the open source story, which makes sense, I suppose, from their perspective. America is usually the source of a lot of the big closed AI models.
Yeah.
And then you've got a lot of parties in between that are somehow trying to navigate this complicated, I won't say battlefield, that's the wrong word, but certainly conflicting set of agendas that these different players have. And I think whether it's, across the entire AI stack, from hardware all the way to data to models and everything else, there's pressures that are really caused by, first of all, wanting to innovate fast, and second, to make sure we're not left in the lurch by, potentially conflicts from data sovereignty issues. And I think those are sort of the big priorities from a regulatory perspective that companies are trying to grapple with. Obviously, the security, the data privacy, these are the things that if you get it wrong, you're in big trouble, frankly.
Yeah. Chris.
So I actually agree, okay? So that's why we are not rushing to actually come out some kind of a regulatory framework, okay, for AI. We want to actually see it as an enabler. We want to actually provide guidance rather than straight away to implement some kind of policy. Policy is actually a very complicated topic because in order to actually figure out how to protect, how to actually create something, enforce certain things, but yet not stop the innovation is actually quite tricky. So I think we're not rushing to do that. We actually want to actually create, I think from IMDA, they actually create the AI governance framework and the AI verify. And for us, we lean forward to look at the security element more from guidance perspective. And hopefully, it will actually have enough guideline for Singapore-based company to follow, so they achieve the innovation, yet they actually do safety and secure manner. I think that's actually one of the key views from Singapore government. That's how we actually see the AI problem in today's lens. But moving forward, when globally, when we actually have a more mature framework, probably we can actually discuss do we actually need to actually have AI policy for a certain sector. For example, for CSA lens, it's actually more on the CII. Do we want to actually have a more stringent requirement to make sure that CII system is more prudent compared to general enterprise? So those are some of the things that keep our policy teammate busy for the last 1-2 years.
Yep, thanks. I think data sovereignty is definitely one of the key issues and challenge that we need to address from the technology perspective. This is where we are seeing that there's quite a couple of solutions that can address this. For example, we have this private LLM or model where you can deploy on-premise, where your private data actually gets secured and it doesn't flow in as a feedback loop back to the open model out there on the web. And of course, with that, we can also look at how we can secure different agentic AI platform workflow by limiting it off-prem, by limiting certain security access to certain workflow or certain action-based execution. So with that, we will be able to, I would say, dissect and segregate the type of access that the models will actually have integration to. And with that, we are looking at how we can closely collaborate with in the industry, especially with those security practice, security consultancy firm, how we're going to drive all this technology to make sure that it's fully secure with the latest updates available. And working with the government regulatory to keep updating the guidelines, the policy, and to look into how we can drive this together as one.
Yeah, 100% agree, Kayang. So like my CEO always say, cybersecurity is a team sport. We need everyone on board to actually play a part. I think AI is actually is a very good example. Why we need to do security right. Otherwise, you may not get the objective you actually want. On one hand, you actually want innovation, but on the other hand, if you open up, and then you actually cause a lot of harm than the value you intend to get.
I think today we have quite a fair bit of discussion. I think we talk quite a fair bit on what the market really sees AI deployment to, the risks that AI brings forth. And of course, we are looking at how we can work together where security is everybody's problem. Right now, maybe towards the end, let's end with a kind of key takeaway. Maybe what is the one thing that each of you would tell enterprise leaders to do now to strengthen AI security? Maybe start with you, Chris.
I suppose you have to start from where you are. That would be my first point. You've got to make sure depending on your technology profile, what sort of use cases you're doing, what sort of projects. Are you doing functional use cases? You're doing industry use cases? Are you mainly using predictive AI versus generative versus agentic AI? These determine to some extent the threats and challenges that you will face from a security perspective. So I think some sort of gap analysis probably makes sense as, just to give you a first clue as to what are the things that really are most important to worry about. As you get more mature, I think, as I mentioned a little bit before, that I think it does make sense to have someone responsible, someone accountable for AI. What you'd call it is another issue: security, trust, responsible AI. You can call it lots of things. But I think having that person have an independence of the AI development process is really important. And I think that until you actually get to that point, you will always run the risk, as, again, anybody who's worked in a bank will know this, you always have the risk that you are, the wolves are looking after the wolves and the sheep are looking after the sheep. You can't have that. You've got to make sure there's a clear clarity about who can say this model is too dangerous, too risky, or the data issues are too complicated, or too demanding in terms of our current infrastructure, or this use case is beyond us. It's not either beyond the technology, beyond our ability to implement. And I think you've got to have someone in the organization whose job it is to say, this is not what we're going to do.
Thank you. What about you, Stanley?
Yeah, I think the key things I want to call out is the visibility really is I think one sensible thing for enterprise to do is actually they need to have some sort of AI inventory. Because if you don't do that, it expands so fast, and then you got shadow AI, that kind of problem. So have a clear the AI system inventory is actually very important. And then also understanding each of the AI system, what's actually the software bill of material. Supply chains definitely will be a key issue, because no one actually build everything by himself. Under the hood, they have so many supply chains they are dependent on. And then like Chris already called out, it could be if you're actually using a China model, you want to make sure all the downstream dependency is actually safe. So you need to really to do more risk assessment. And then I fully agree. Point someone to actually be responsible from the technical point of view. That means there's few people are very crucial for the AI system. Your data officer, your CISO. If you have an AI officer, these three parties need to working very closely in order to really deliver the innovation at the same time, secure your data and your crown jewels. That will be the advice I want to give. Yeah.
AI brings huge promise, but its success depends on trust. By combining sound technology practices, market insights, and thoughtful regulations, we can build AI systems that are secure and sustainable. Chris, Stanley, thanks for the conversation, and thank you to our listener for tuning in to Decoding the Future. Until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.